All right. So let's get started. So this course is specifically designed to cover two things. One, the aspects related to the ECBA certification. All right. So ECBA certification is newly introduced certification from IIBA, which will allow all the professionals to get into business analysis through this certification. So this is like a barometer for measuring your skills at the entry level as a business analyst. Okay. But having said that, at the entry level, Satya, I suggest you be on mute so that otherwise the recording will have the background noises from coming from you as well. Okay. So whenever you have to ask question,
Sure. I muted myself.
So, but having said that, it is also important to understand that the entry level roles typically requires you to have certain practical skills as well. Certification skills are typically more process oriented, more theoretical in nature. But to start with, companies expect you to have certain techniques very relevant to the business analysis role to be known to you. Okay, so you will face questions during the interview, which are more about practically doing things, understanding how things are done. So that's why this course will combine these two things together. Okay. So let me just quickly brief you about myself. Okay. So I have now more than around 22 years of experience of the IT industry. I did my engineering and then did my executive MBA. And I worked with companies like ICICI, Mastech, and some other companies as well. I have written a couple of books, which you'll see later. And then I also blog very regularly on a company blog website, which is for business analysts. So that's one blog which I maintain and I update regularly. I also take guest lectures at Narsimonji Management College and SNDT Engineering College. So they have some guest lectures arranged every few months. So I go there and take that. These are the couple of books which I have co-authored with one of my good friends, Sandeep Desai. So they are already published by Prentice Hall of India. So having discussed about myself, let's start and first understand what is business analysis so that we set the right expectations in the beginning. So the idea is to understand what is the broad level understanding of business analysis as a practice and as an area of study. How does business analyst relate to a business analysis? Does business analyst do everything business analysis defines as the scope of work, or it is typically applicable, some part of it is applicable in IT industry, some part of it is applicable in maybe other industries as well. So let's try and understand what is business analysis. So as per IIBA, the formal definition is, it is the practice of enabling change in an organizational context by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to the stakeholders. So when IIBA has defined this is kind of a new definition to business analysis. They have mentioned certain key aspects of it, which they have also defined as the core concepts for business analysis. So some of the things which you must notice is change. So when you're talking about business analysis, we are talking about a change where business analysis works as a catalyst. Second aspect which is important is to look at the organizational context. So whenever we are talking about a change, we are talking about the organizational perspective. So a change happens for a particular organization, and one change happening in one organization will be completely different from the same kind of change happening in another organization because the context is different, the organization's background is different. So that has to be taken into consideration in understanding business analysis. Next part of the definition is the need. So the change is happening because an organization is looking for solving a particular problem, or they have looked at an opportunity and they want to address that opportunity. So that opportunity may also result into a change. And then finally, the solution part. So every need will result into certain sets of solutions, which has to be evaluated, and then a final solution has to be recommended to the organization. Now, all of this will also also be considered in terms of the value for a particular stakeholder or a set of stakeholders who are looking at this particular change. So there are many aspects. We are going to see it in details when we are discussing business analysis later. But as of now, we are looking at certain aspects of business analysis which are critical. One is change, other one is needs, the context, and the solution. So these are the core parts or sections of business analysis which we need to understand. I've explained this in a brief. We'll be seeing this in greater length when we are discussing the business analysis core concepts module. So who is a business analyst? So business analyst is typically a professional who is going to perform one or all of the business analysis functions. Okay, and that's important to note because it's not necessary that business analyst will be doing all of the tasks or all of the functions defined as business analysis functions in every context. So you have all the skills with you as a business analyst, but in different contexts, you'll be using different functions, maybe one, maybe more than one. And that's how the role of a business analyst spans out. Another typical confusion which is there in the market is business analysis versus business analytics. Okay, so what is happened is we have started to refer to both these streams in the similar manner by calling them as business analysts. Okay, so if you search in Google and if you read the literature, many of the organizations are referring to similar things by using the term called business analyst. Okay, that's a bit of a confusion which is getting created because of this. However, they're two different streams altogether. So when we talk generally about business analyst, we are talking about somebody who is more concerned with understanding what does the customer need from a software solution. Okay, so business analysts traditionally have been more related to IT industry rather than any other industry. Okay. However, later on, the analyst term started to get into many other domains. So there are risk analysts, there are technical analysts in the stock market, and so many other terms, other industries where this started to get used. Okay. So, but when we are talking about IT business analyst, we are talking about somebody who is looking at a software solution requirements, whether for an existing software or for something which is going to be created completely afresh. Okay, so you are dealing with requirements, you are dealing with solutions, you are dealing with testing. That's how IT business analysts work. Analytics is completely about data. Okay, so a business analytics professional will only be dealing with data, analysis of data, and the possibility of using that data to solve a business problem. And that is where it starts becoming confusing, because as an analyst, when we looked at the business analysis as a practice, we looked at looking at the needs of the customer and finding a solution. That's the primary meaning of business analysis. And if you look at the analytics, that is also doing the same thing. You're looking at a business problem and then you're solving it. Okay. The difference is the analytics professionals only look at data to solve a business problem. Whereas an IT business analyst is looking at requirements, the needs, and various other aspects related to software development processes to solve a problem. So the end result for both the professions are the same. There's no difference. In each one of the cases, you are solving a business problem. However, the approach is different. So in analytics, you're looking at data. In business, IT business analysis, you're looking at requirements. All right. So the difference is only in the approach. That's how use of business analyst in both the contexts has become pretty dominant, and sometimes it can create a bit of a confusion. So I thought let's clarify that. Okay. So having looked at the business analysis and business analytics, let's become a little more specific and look at business analysts' role and responsibilities. This is primarily for IT industry. Okay. So we are talking about IT industry specifically. What does a business analyst do in an IT industry role? Okay. So let's say in IT industry, when you're talking about projects, we're talking about software development, we are talking about two independent teams. There's a customer team, there's a vendor team. Okay. So vendor team is the IT company's team, which is going to develop the software. This IT team can be inside an organization or it can be completely independent IT organization. Okay. So how does it start? It starts by the customer specifying the need to the business analyst. The business analyst details out the customer's needs and creates specifications so that the technology team can work on it and develop a software solution. Once the solution is ready, then there is a validation part which happens, and that is where business analysts again get involved before it is handed over to the customer for their UAT, which is the user acceptance test. So this is how typically the business analyst role works out in the IT industry. It's a very broad level understanding. There'll be a lot of techniques and tools involved in doing all of that, all of these activities.
Oh. So Abhishek, I have one question.
Yep.
So in the previous slide, so it's BA is more of gathering the needs of the customer and then explaining it to the technical teams so that they can come up with some application, right? So this UAT happens from the customer side, or
the UAT happens? Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the UAT is done by the IT, the vendor team, or the people from the customer side. They come and they perform the UAT.
So the UAT, as the name suggests, is the responsibility of the customer. Okay, the vendor cannot do the UAT. Okay, it's basically acceptance testing. So what essentially the objective is that what I will need to verify and validate before I say that yes, this is done.
Okay.
Okay. So now, the only thing is, sometimes the customer may do it themselves by their own professionals, or they may outsource it to somebody outside. So there are cases where a third party or another vendor does the testing for the customers.
Okay.
It's possible.
So before solution and validated solution, so the IT company which is developing this application, they also do their testing, right? Even before it goes to UAT.
No, come again. I didn't understand the question.
No, even before it goes to UAT, the vendor does the testing of the application which they built as well, right?
Yes,
Before
yes.
it goes to the UAT level.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are cases there are system testing, integration testing, all of those that happens at the vendor side. That's why the term used as validated solution.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So can you proceed further now?
Yes. Yes.
So what are the key responsibilities for a business analyst? Okay. So primarily the business analyst role involves a lot of interactions, both from the customer side as well as from the technical side. More from the customer side rather than technical side. But the communication is an important part of every business analyst's day-to-day activities. Okay. So business analysts have to be good in terms of communication, not necessarily just oral, but also written, because a lot of information has to be done in a more formal way so that there is a proof of it, there is a record of it. Okay. So communication plays an important role. Now communication is regarding what? So communication is regarding understanding the requirements, gathering of it, the analysis of requirements, the modeling of the requirements, the documentation of the requirements in the form of, let's say, SRS document, which is a typical standard system requirements specification document. It could be related to changes which are coming after the software is started to get used. Communication related to testing of the software, communication related to UAT coordination. When the customer team is doing the testing, there will be certain defects, there will be certain issues, clarifications which will come to you. So you have to look at that also. On the technical side or your own team, there will be certain questions which they will ask in terms of when they're they're doing the development work, they will come with clarifications and why this is so, or there will be certain questions which can be very basic in nature, in terms of business rules, in terms of how should we name a particular thing on the page. All of that can come to you from the technical team. So, and from your side, you have to communicate with the technical team so that they can understand what is to be done. So another important aspect to this communication challenges, both these sides, the customer side and the technical side, they speak and understand different languages. And I am not talking about English and French. I'm talking about the nature of their communication. So customers typically will speak business language. The technical team typically speak technical language. And there is always a gap. Okay. So another important aspect of communication for business analysts is to be able to map these two different languages, the business language and the tech language. That brings us to the important point. Yes, Satya.
Yeah. So I have few queries on the previous slide.
Yeah, go ahead.
So these are the different steps where we need to interact with the customer, right? So the requirement modeling, requirement gathering is, I understood, requirement modeling is to understand the requirements which we gathered from our side. What is all expected from the customer? That is comes under requirement modeling, is it?
No, you will understand all of this. See, this is because we are doing business analysis course itself. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously there will be a lot of focus given to these topics. So all of these topics
Okay.
which are listed here will be discussed at great length with examples and assignments and everything, because that's primarily your job, and this is what we are going to teach you. Okay.
Okay.
So all of this will be
So
taught.
okay. So one more thing, you told what is the difference between a business analyst and business, analytics. That I understood. And one more I get confused is the overlapping of roles R&R between business analyst and a project manager. The project manager also deals with a particular project end to end, right from taking the requirement till the product is developed. And so how exactly we can differentiate a business analyst R&R and a project manager R&R? How it's different?
It's basically, see, the project managers have a much larger responsibility area as compared to a business analyst. Okay.
Okay.
So a project does not only have capturing of requirements and delivering of the requirements.
Yeah, there's budgeting and all those resources.
No, the development itself, the activity of software development itself is an important part of the software development life cycle. Who will manage it? So project managers, as the name suggests, the tag says manager. That means they have the responsibility of managing things. So they plan, then they track whether the things are going as per the plan, and if there is an issue, they need to take the responsibility of fixing that issue. So the end-to-end responsibility is with project manager for every project. Business analysts play an assistant role to project manager as of now in making that thing possible. So a business analyst also report to project managers. Okay. So if things go wrong, the first person who is held responsible is the project manager.
Okay.
Okay.
So in this scenario, say for example, we got a requirement from the customer telling I need so and so application which will for my particular need. So the business analyst will take the requirement, then he goes to the technical team, he will explain them this is the requirement from the customer. And then they'll start working or developing that application or the tool. So in this place where the project manager fit, so the business analyst will go to the project manager. Where does the PM fit in this scenario, for example?
No. So what you're describing is right, but it's an oversimplification of the whole thing. Okay. There's not one-to-one mapping between a business analyst and a developer, unless and until the team is very small. Okay. It doesn't happen this way. What happens is when you are talking with the customer and getting the requirements, okay, it's a large set of requirements we're talking about. There could be hundreds of screens, there could be 50 screens, okay, or there could be a lot of functions which are there. So you will be developing a kind of a specification document, which is maybe an SRS, maybe functional specification document or user story mapping. There are a lot of formal documentations which should be created at the end of the business analysis, at the end of the requirements gathering. Okay, that document will also have to be validated by somebody who can say that, okay, whatever you have captured, we will start verification validation activity, but that has to be verified and validated. Once that is done, then there are teams called design team. They will start working on the specification document to design the system which is to be developed by the technology team. Okay, so it's not like you take a requirement and give it to a developer saying that, okay, this is what is required, you develop it. That only happens during the maintenance phase. Once the complete software is done and it's on the live front, and then you are with the customer on the customer location, and customer says, okay, ye chota fix kar do. This is a small problem, just get it fixed. Okay, so then you may directly interact with the developer, but otherwise that communication doesn't happen directly. That is part one of the answer. Part two, where does the project manager come into picture? Project manager will not come into picture in every communication. If project manager starts coming into every communication, then project manager will not have time to do any other thing. There are so many communication channels. You just think like this. If there are 2 members in the team, there is 1 communication channel. If there are 3, there are 2 communication channels, or maybe 3 communication channels. So as the number of people in the team increase, the number of communication channels start multiplying. The project manager is not supposed to be involved in every communication. You can have independent communication. What project manager is concerned about, this particular program was supposed to get over in 2 days, starting today. Is it getting over in 2 days? Or the developer or any other team member is facing a problem in not finishing it in 2 days? Then I need to fix that issue so that it gets finished in 2 days. That is how project managers work. They are not going to duplicate the work of a business analyst. And they are not going to be kind of a communication channel for you. Right?
Okay.
Does that clarify?
Yeah. So the PM will have direct interaction with the customer in general, or if any changes to the project, or if they answer, or it will be through a BA.
It will depend, but project managers have all the rights. I mean, let's look at it from this angle. In the interest of the project, it's always good if a particular kind of communication happens with a particular person, okay, rather than this information going to 2 different persons. So let's say, for example, there is a change in a particular software. Will the customer need to convey it to both the project manager and a business analyst? No. The clear-cut answer is, even if the customer does that, you should avoid it. There could be mails which can go to both, and customer will definitely mark it to project managers also. But he or she is never kind of advised to communicate independently to 2 different sets of people. That is kind of dangerous for the project. Okay, so typically project managers will not come in the requirements related stuff unless and until the business analyst is very new and that person needs a bit of handholding. Okay. However, in all the other related matters, the customer will directly connect to project managers.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So see, typically, just to give you an idea, in any project, okay, when you start a project, the project managers are the people who are first allocated to a project. So when the sales team, we are going to discuss that later, but just to give you an idea, because that question has come up. When a project is won by a software company, okay, this is in case of an external outsourcing vendor. Internally also, when there are requirements, okay, the first person who comes into picture is project manager typically, because the project manager is the first person who is allocated to a team. Okay, that is how the communication channels are set up in the beginning. So the customers will be interacting with the project managers to set up the expectations of the project. So there could be certain things like when the project is going to get over, how much time it's going to take, who are the people who are going to work on it, how large is the team, how the project itself will pan out, what will happen first, then how, what is the way of executing the project. All of that will happen with project managers. Then the business analysts and other team members will come into picture. Then the project manager will assign the responsibility of capturing the requirements to the business analyst with all the background information that this is the way we are going to capture the requirements. Okay, so that is how things start. And then business analyst goes there. Sometimes business analyst may be accompanied by project managers, depending on the nature of the project. And Once the requirements are gathered, it is then brought back and the technology team starts getting into the picture for developing the or starting the work of the software development. Okay. During all this period, now the business analysts have interacted with customer quite a bit. So then a rapport gets built. Okay. Because if the project manager is not there and business analyst is leading the requirements activity, so requirements activity takes a bit of time. So overall, if you look at requirements gathering itself, it takes quite a bit of time in developing the requirements. It's almost 15% to 20% of the project effort. So during these interactions, the customer will start having a rapport with the business analyst. Okay. Then what will happen in future? The customers will prefer to talk to business analysts as far as the requirements are concerned, because now they have developed a rapport. Okay. So whatever related to changes or requirements, customers will start talking to business analysts. They will not go to project managers. Through business analyst, then obviously it means that if something is coming to you, you cannot take an independent decision. You have to go to project managers to say, okay, this is the change that the customer is asking for. And then you decide what is to be done. So that is how it works out. And in most of the cases, after a while, you will become the face of the project. Customer will always be talking to you. Okay. So that's a little background with which typically project managers and business analysts work.
That clarifies.
Okay. All right. So, yes, Purni.
Hi. No,
Yeah.
I'm clear so far. Yeah, I've caught up.
All right. Okay, fine. So I suggest all of you go on mute. Then we can take up the next. Okay. So now the most important question, which is why do we need business analysts, and why in the last few years business analysts have become important in software projects. Okay. Just to kind of give you a background, it's not that business analysts were not there in the IT industry. They have been in the IT industry for a long, long time. But the prominence has come in last few years. Okay. At many years back when I was working with Mastic, I had a role of business analyst. Even my designation was systems analyst. Okay. So many organizations even then identified what a business analyst should do and why it is important. Okay. But what has happened over the years is that projects have a very bad track record in terms of the success. Okay. So if you look at the data, this data is basically collected by a company which prepares and publishes chaos report every year. Okay. So this is the last or the very recent 5 years of data, which says that how many projects have been successful. You look at, it's all around 30%. That means only 1/3 of the projects are successful. Remaining projects are either challenged, I'll explain what is challenged, or failed. Even the failing percentage, failing means it's completely shut down. There is no progress on that project. All the money which has been put into that is waste. So almost 20% of the projects have failed over the years. That's an average. What do you mean by challenge? So there are 3 key parameters for a project: the cost, the schedule, that is the timelines, and the quality. These are the 3 key parameters on which the success or the failure has been measured. So when you say challenged, it has either failed on one of the parameters or maybe 2 of the parameters. If it has failed on all the 3 parameters, it might be tagged as failed. Okay, so that percentage is almost 50%. So almost 70% of the projects have been either challenged or have failed. That's a pretty bad record for software projects. Okay. So when you're looking at the success and failure rate, you'll also look at the size of the projects. Does size have an impact on the success or the failure rates? It has pretty much a significant impact on the success and failure. So if you look at small projects, have a very high success rate, 62%. As you start going bigger and bigger, you'll see that the success rates is diminishing rapidly. Okay, so grand projects are pretty rare. There are very few projects. The grand projects have almost all of them have failed. So we are talking about $100 million kind of projects. Okay, but even for moderate projects, which are $1 million project, or rather less than that, the success rate is quite low. Okay, so why this is so? Why so many projects have bad records in terms of completion and success? The reasons, they try to figure out what are the reasons. So this is the result of surveys which are conducted by the company which publishes Chaos report. That company name is Standish Group. So when they looked at a report, they figured out 10 top reasons for all the categories. So when cancelled projects means failed projects. So look at the first three. Just look at the first three. It says lack of user input, incomplete requirements, changing requirements. So you'll see a common thread here. You are seeing that possibly users were not that involved in the project. The requirements were not complete for whatever reasons. And requirements got changed frequently. That was the top three reasons for failed projects. What about the challenge projects? Again, if you look at the reasons, it says lack of user input, incomplete requirements, changing requirements. Let's go to the successful projects. First, user involvement. That means the projects become successful when the users were involved quite a bit. The requirements were clear and there was executive support. That means the sponsor who was sponsoring or paying the money, they always supported the project throughout the life cycle. Now, if you look at this and try to match and see what is the common thread here. There are two common threads, one related to requirements, one related to the involvement of the user. Okay, so it means that the requirements have always played an important role in terms of doing the making the project successful or fail. So because of this, what has happened is you always needed a role or somebody who can understand the requirements properly from the customer, okay, or help the customer in explaining what is exactly required. So the common challenges are customers themselves are not very clear as to how to specify the requirements to the customers. Satya, hold on, we'll come discuss this. Secondly, when they are explaining the requirements, is the technical team capable enough to understand what is required? Because there is always a language problem. Okay, language in the sense, business is talking about business and in requirements from the business perspective. The technology team has a tendency to start thinking about how they are going to write the code when they listen to a requirement. And then, because of this, they miss out on certain significant parts as to why something is being done. Okay, and because of that, a significant part of the solution misses the target, which is in the minds of the customer. Okay, just looking at, if you look at the e-commerce website, the simplest example, because everybody interacts with the e-commerce websites. If you look at the top 3-4 e-commerce websites, they all do the same thing. You go and buy certain stuff. But if you look at the flow of the system, look at how they allow customers to interact with them, they're all different. So Amazon behaves in a particular manner, Flipkart works in a different manner, eBay works in a different manner. So all of them, they work in a slightly different way. Why? Because the business has perceived it in that particular manner. Even though the target is the same, they allow retail customers to buy products online. Okay, that important difference is one of the primary reasons for software projects to not succeed significantly. And that is how the business analyst role has come into prominence. They are supposed to play the role of an intermediary who understands both sides. They understand the language of the customer as well as the language of the technology team. So that will bring us to the important part. In order to do so, to understand both sides, what are the skills which are needed for business analysts? Yes, now you can ask questions. Hold on. Yeah, so your question is whether lack of user input means customer did not provide proper requirement. No, that will mean you are fixing the responsibility on the customer. Okay, it could be one of the parts. Okay, I mean, did not provide the requirements shows that there is some kind of a mischief there. It's not about that. It's like you are expecting a customer to tell you requirements, right? The customer is, let's say, I am managing, I am the CEO of the organization, or I am heading the floor in a factory. I don't know what is requirements. I don't know what will make you understand and develop a system. I will tell you my requirements the way I understand, right? I can't tell you that, okay, you make this field here on the web page and you put a button on the bottom or on the top. That is your problem. So when you say not clear requirements or a lack of understanding of the requirements, it's basically a communication issue. Okay. So I tried to tell you something which either you have not understood or you have not tried to understand. You have not used the right techniques to help me give you what you want. That is where the modeling and analysis techniques come into picture. So I will not say that there is a mischief involved here. It's just that the two of these people speak different languages. However, there are cases where customers are not very clear about the requirements. They know something is to be done, but they're like in two minds, whether we should go ahead with this kind of a requirement, this kind of a thing, or this kind of a thing. And then a typical statement of customers is, okay, let's go ahead and we'll see what is to be done. Okay, so no mischief here. It's not meant to be a mischief. Any other questions?
Yeah, Abhishek. I have one query. So as you said, the BA stands between the customer and the application or the technical teams who actually build the application. So for example, say the customer want to build some ERP application or something related to cloud or anything. So as a BA, I may not be very technically strong to understand the ERP or the cloud technology. So how I'll explain to the technical team, and as a BA, I'm not very much comfortable with ERP or cloud or whatever it is. So how I'm going to explain it to the technical teams?
No. So there are two different things which you are mentioning here. One is ERP and one is cloud, right? So ERP is more like a business requirement, right? So ERP is a set of, ERP is a software solution which automates a set of business processes. Okay. Cloud is a technology, right? So the technical team is equipped enough to understand cloud. You don't need to explain it to them. What is cloud? Customer will neither be able to tell you what is cloud. So the requirements will never come for cloud, right?
And just giving an example, if say for example, it might be a ERP application only you're developing.
Correct.
So as a BA, I'm not very much aware of ERP, how does it work and all. So how I'm going to communicate to the technical teams because they more understand the technical part of it.
No. So first of all, you need to know what is to be done, right?
Okay.
So how will you come to know that?
From the customer, we'll know what exactly need to be done.
Yeah. So you will be interacting with the customer first, right? So what you are going to do is you are going to understand how an invoicing or invoice will be generated for the business, right? Some milestone has been achieved or some product has been sold. So invoice has to be generated. How it is done, customer will explain you. So there could be certain steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, right? This is what you have to understand. So how does ERP come into picture? Right? So just think from a perspective saying that what is to be done, you need to just understand what is to be done. And that has nothing to do with any kind of a system. If you, let's say, the only challenge which will come is in terms of if there is something which is too technical in terms of business. So if you have to deal with stock market, okay, and you're developing a software to the core technical analysis, you must have heard about CNBC and other stuff where they do technical analysis, they do a lot of charting and all. So that you may not understand. So even if the customer tries to explain it to you, you may not understand. But the general business processes are not that complicated. If you are trying to understand it from the customer, you'll be able to understand. But of course, there could be situations where the business areas you may not be very comfortable with. So as a business analyst, one of the important skills which will come to is the understanding of the business. So if you come with a background or you acquire later the business domain knowledge, that's an important skill for every business analyst. Okay. So in the initial period, if you're talking about a particular domain which you may not be comfortable with, then of course you may have a challenge. But on the technology front, you will not have any challenge because you don't need to explain the code to anyone. You just need to explain the process. So if you have understood the process, explaining to the technology team is very simple. That we anyway will explain and discuss in the class as to how that is done. Okay. So don't worry about a specific core technology skills at all. You don't need to know technology in terms of the core skills. You just need to know overall, if at all you need to know. Okay. So don't worry on that one. Business side, of course, you need to develop that skills if you don't already have in terms of understanding a particular domain, which is difficult to understand. Okay. So as I mentioned, one example could be stock market, capital markets, investment related products, which is not kind of a common domain knowledge. But if it is related to finance, I mean, even if it is related to finance, saying billing cycles and invoicing or those kind of stuff, it's not that complicated to understand when the customers explain. Does that answer your question? Okay. So now let's look at, so what are the skills which are important for business analysts? So there are 4 important skills. Okay. So we have kind of named it as craft framework for business analyst skills. So these are the 4 pillars for every business analyst. You may not be starting with all these 4. Okay. The people who are coming from business background have an advantage. because they already come with some kind of business understanding. Okay, but people who are coming from other areas where, let's say for example, somebody is coming from a business development background, they may not be having a business knowledge per se. They might be knowing about the products and all, but not having a thorough understanding of the processes. Okay, so for all those people, they have to acquire it as they go along in the profession. So it starts with communication skills, extremely important for every business analyst, both oral as well as written communication, because you are playing a critical role which can immediately turn. I mean, it's very easy for a business analyst to become a bad guy. Okay, the moment people start looking at you saying that he's siding with one side, you have a problem. So you have to be very crisp and very clear with how you are understanding the requirements and how you are communicating it with the other party. Next part is to be able to translate the requirements from one language to another language. That means you are getting the requirements from the customer. Now you have to map it to a set of requirements which the technology team can understand. That's covered by requirement analysis and modeling. That is the first set of core skills for every business analyst, and it covers a majority of your work. The third part is the functional knowledge. So as you start working in the industry, first you will have the practical knowledge when you are interacting with the customer, and then you have to acquire business knowledge as you go along. So there are situations, or there are courses which are available for you to go and have functional knowledge. Then the testing part of it. So how to effectively and efficiently validate a system before it is handed over to the customer. That's the second part of the fourth part of the skills. Okay, so most of the things are covered by these four skills. There could be many other things like specific tool skills. There are hundreds of tools which are available. Okay, and you possibly can't have knowledge of all the tools. Not possible. Okay, so as far as the tools are concerned, I always believe that if you have the fundamentals clear, picking up a tool takes not more than sometimes just one day, sometimes maybe a week max. So today there are hundreds of tools which are available. Tomorrow all these 100 tools might become obsolete, and you might have another fresh set of 100 tools. So you can't focus on tools saying that as a business analyst I need to have this tools knowledge, and that will be kind of a strong part of my repertoire. That is never going to happen. Tools are just one of the means to do things. Getting a little more specific in terms of skills. So we are talking about software development methodologies, understanding of the business analysis body of knowledge guide, which is the IIBA guide, requirement elicitation techniques, UML modeling skills, prototyping, data flow diagrams. So data flow diagrams are legacy technique, not used very frequently, but still you might find certain situations where you might be using data flow diagrams. Then data modeling, a bit of SQL, which is what you call a bit of programming. It's not exactly programming, but some semblance of programming will come into this picture. Then testing, and then cost benefit analysis. Why cost benefit analysis is that as you start becoming a little more experienced and you're closer to the customer might come up with saying that, okay, I want to do this. I want to develop this software. Can you tell me whether for $100,000 this makes sense for how much cost it will be, and can it be done within $100,000, or what are the benefits out of it? I'm looking at these benefits. Can you do a comparison for me? So that's a cost benefit analysis which comes into picture. So these are these very specific ones. Yes, go ahead with your question.
What is UML modeling?
It's a, see, modeling is basically a visual representation of information, right? So there are various tools or diagrammatic notations which are used for visual representation. Okay, so UML is one of them. It's called Unified Modeling Language. Okay, similarly, data flow diagrams is another one which is also used for visual modeling of requirements. We are going to see both of them, how it is done in details.
Okay.
So Abhishek, in the previous slide, I just wanted to understand the functional knowledge, understanding of domain, which you specified. So as a BI, we need to understand the business of the customer, in which domain they are operating.
Yes.
You mean that?
Yes, you need that.
Okay.
Not in the beginning,
So
but as you go along, it's always good. If you have to succeed and do well as a business analyst, you need to develop those skills also. But
so if the customer is from finance,
yeah,
related as a banking customer, then I need to understand the banking domain kind of thing.
yeah, but just one clarification here. When we say functional knowledge, you are not a banker, right? And you can never be a banker because you're not practicing banking. What you need to know is the overall process and the terminologies which a banker will use when you're talking to the banker. Okay.
Okay.
So you don't think in terms of I should be having a knowledge so that I can, if tomorrow if I join the bank, I will be able to work like the banker. You'll never be able to do that. Neither you're required to do so.
Just understand the domain.
Yes.
And,
broad terms, broad processes.
Yes.
That should be good enough.
Okay. And the functional testing, you said you should have ability to conduct system testing.
Yes.
So the BI will be actually doing the testing, or it will be entirely on the testing team which will be doing?
No, responsibility is yours. See, look at this.
Okay.
You are taking all the requirements from the customer, right? You are understanding what does the customer need. So who will verify whether it is whatever is needed is there in the system or not? Right?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, you need to know that how to do it. So you might have to do a random test. You might have to run a few test cases, but in the beginning level, you might have to do functional testing also.
Okay. So, and how the testing team, they come into picture?
The testing team will do the majority of the testing.
Okay. We randomly do it as a BA.
Yeah. So because the responsibility is yours. So you can't kind of say that testing team will do everything and I will just give it to the customer. Right?
Okay. Okay.
So BA testing will be similar to probably a part of UAT.
Yes. So what functional testing is actually the other side of the UAT. So the UAT is also functional testing, but conducted by customers. Functional testing is functional testing. It's more like looking at, let's say if I want to make a purchase of a product on my website, which is an e-commerce website, am I able to do so? That's a particular case or a scenario. So if I'm using a valid credit card, am I able to make a purchase? Right? That's the end goal of any product, of the e-commerce product. So you need to do that yourself to see whether it's happening or not. If I'm able to put an order in a COD mode, am I able to do it? That's
so basically,
yeah.
So basically, my testing is in line is to check whether my product is in line with the requirements that I have captured.
Absolutely, correct point.
Okay, got it.
And that is what your responsibility is. You are not going to look at saying that whether the email validation is happening correctly or not. you have not put in at the rate, whether still it accepts it or not. You will not get into that as well. That is done by the either the individual developers or the testers.
Okay.
All right. So now let's look at the course as to what we are going to do. So basically, whatever we have covered in terms of the individual skills, we are going to capture that. Okay, so we'll look at problem solving, and the problem solving is one of the important skills which is not very specific to IT industry. But problem solving as a skill is important for every analyst. So whenever you're playing a role as an analyst, problem solving is the core skill. And even otherwise, as a professional in the competitive world of today, you need to be very good at solving problems. No matter what technique you're going to use, but if you can solve problems, you will always be in demand. Then we'll be looking at DFD and UML as we discussed. We'll look at basics of data modeling. We'll look at some SQL. So don't get scared by SQL saying that it's a programming language. It's simple. So what you need to know is very basic. Then cost benefit analysis. So we'll do some basic stuff as to how you can compare cost and benefit and give a business case to the customer. So business case is something which every business analyst will get involved at some point in time. So what is a business case? From the very basic perspective, it is the entire justification of a particular initiative. So tomorrow, if you have to make a flyover, there has to be a business case as to why something is being made. Does it make sense to do it? Okay. So in public projects, the benefit might not be in terms of revenue, but in terms of software projects or any other investments, there has to be some benefits which are actual and tangible, so that you can compare whether my benefits are at least equal to my costs today. That's a business case. Then we'll have case studies, we'll have some tools which we'll be covering for modeling. You'll get access to a lot of templates which is there in the learning management system portal, and some pre-work for people who are coming from non-IT background. Now the approach will be, we'll be trying to look at the concepts part of it. Then we'll be having examples. We'll be giving you some assignments, and there will be some exercises in the class as well. Okay, so that some critical tasks are done in the practical manner, and you get a feel as to how things will happen. There will be two projects which will be given to you. One which you'll be doing using traditional approach, and one which you'll be doing using agile approach. Okay, so agile is something which is the future. A lot of organizations have already moved into agile, and most of them will ultimately move to agile. Okay, so you need to be familiar with those terms. How does it work? Understanding of the basic principles of agile, that is going to be important. Okay, so these are some of the tools which we are going to look at. So we are going to look at all open source tools. Okay, and these are some of the simplest ones which we have kind of shortlisted over the period of time. These are some of the templates which are going to be available to you, so you can download, you can use it whenever you want to. Okay, but it's more than what is listed here in your LMS system. And finally, so what I expect from you people is participate in the activities and practice from your own side. I mean, if you can practice things which are important for you, even if you feel right now these things are more important for me, then you practice those things so that you get a better understanding of the thing. And later on you can kind of work on other things, because you will not be able to use all of them in every project. Some of them will be used in one project, like UML modeling might be used in one project. In another project you might be using some other modeling technique like DFD. Okay. In the third project, you might only be using prototyping. So it depends which, it's like horses for courses. You'll have to always be aware that which particular technique works in which area best. You have to go ahead and do it. Okay. So any questions so far? Visio we don't cover. We only cover, see, Visio is a paid tool. Okay. So Visio is not a pretty complicated tool as such. Okay. It's just a drawing of the stuff. So if you know PowerPoint, and if you can do the drawing in PowerPoint, you can use shapes and all. Visio is absolutely the same. Okay. So if you have seen PowerPoint, you'll see that there are a set of tools and